Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar today on how to build a trust-building sales culture. Larry, what's going on? How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm fired up for this, Daryl. This is going to be exciting.
I'm
Gra- hey,
excited as
gra-
well.
grab some paper and grab a pen. That's old school for all you newbies. You can grab your latest tech gadget.
Grab your iPad right here. There you go, and take some notes. This is what we're talking about today. How to build a trust-building sales culture is actually, I believe, a really critical conversation for all of us to have right now, especially. And we're going to share why in just a minute. But in today's conversation in this live stream, we want to talk about why it's critical to look at culture in our sales teams right now. And then we want to look at 4 core ways that you can build a culture of trust. And in your sales team, we'll give you some practical action items in the 30-45 minutes we spend here together. It's going to be a fantastic conversation in all of this. But Larry, there are some trends driving this
Oh,
conversation, and I almost hesitate to put them up here
well,
because
hey, but
they're a little
Daryl,
bit of a bummer.
no, we
But
have to. But you know what? It's just room for improvement. But it just really sets the stage for our conversation today.
it does, absolutely. So let's take a look at some of these trends just real quickly. You've got 3 things. We're gonna look at employee engagement, turnover, and quota attainment. So none of this is good, but the first one is from 2019. So that's, in some ways the dark ages compared to what we've been through in the last couple of years here. But 84% of employees say they're disengaged at work right now. 84%. You take that to a sales team, and I just got back from the Purpose Summit last week. Huge shout out to Davin Silvano and his team for putting on an amazing event. But this data got brought up in a number of different contexts to where literally we're talking about less than 20% of the workforce is actively engaged. It's like not phoning it in. They're showing up and doing it. And you take that across a sales team and you go, okay, what does it look like in terms of actual like heart in it, engaged, showing up, fired up? The data is scary.
It is scary. And here's what I want us to think about. If the number's the number, but if you have a disengaged sales team,
Mhm.
think about where that engagement level lies with your clients. Just stop and think about that one for a moment. A disengaged sales force I believe it directly correlates to disengagement with your clients.
Well, that's a really good point. And the other thing is, the positive side of it, if we can put a positive
Exactly.
spin on it, is anything we can do to get our sales team more engaged is going to directly increase results. We'll take a look at some data behind that in a minute as well. But 3x turnover. This is, turnover is crazy right now. HubSpot research is telling us that of all the madness of the great resignation, sales is one of the biggest victims. Turnover is now 3x what it is in other industries in the sales profession.
And this is where, the old saying is you got to coach your people. You must coach your people up. Lean
That's
into
right.
your people and coach your people up.
Now, there are always going to be some people that need to be coached
Absolutely.
out. There's no
Sure.
question about that. But the reality is, we've got to ask ourselves the real question of what does it mean? What does it mean for us to actually look at this square in the eye and go, what's the reason for this? And it's not always because someone's dangling more money on the other side of the thing. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's because the lack of culture where they're just, salespeople. We could talk about this maybe for a whole other webinar around why that turnover rate's so high. But check this out too. 57% of sales reps are expected to miss their quota this year. And this was done by Narrative Science, which is a company owned by Salesforce. And so you take a look at these 3 data points of engagement, turnover, and reps that are, expected to miss quota over half. You go, there is an opportunity for massive improvement. I dare say not just an opportunity, a desperate need for massive improvement.
Absolutely. And this is where consistency and discipline comes in. It's just, and these are to move the needle. Is it going to require some action? Of course it is, but it's small incremental chunks of action delivered consistently over time. Watch what starts happening to the needle, that sales needle inside your sales team.
Well, I think that's kind of cool because we talk about that in sales as we're
Yeah.
coaching reps and all the time, right? Is small incremental improvements make massive, change over time. Same thing is true here. And it's really cool when you take a look at this. Hubert Jolly's got a great book called The Heart of Business, just came out. You former CEO, last CEO place, title, role. This is where we're going. Last company
Get it out there, Daryl.
Spit it out, Daryl. Spit it out. Was at Best Buy. He did the turnaround at Best Buy, and he said, "Look, when we get engagement, we get productivity, we lower turnover, we increase customer satisfaction, and all of that drives profitability." And when you think about that in the context of the world we all live in, which is sales, what he is saying right here is so spot on for what we need to address these challenges that we face right now. And this is where we want to go today, is to think together about what could it look like to create a trust building culture in your organization. I think we all know the famous quote by Peter Drucker, but it's so fun to say: culture eats strategy
Sure
for breakfast, right? And if culture eats strategy for breakfast, we got to ask ourselves, well, what are we serving at breakfast? what's the meal being served up? And I believe that underneath culture is trust. And this is, the question we have for every sales leader on this call this morning live or watching in later is, what type of sales culture do you want to create in your organization? The reality is, we're creating culture whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. We're creating a culture that's driving towards these engagement, turnover, and quota attainment numbers. And the question that faces all of us today is, what type of culture do we want to create, and what could it look like if we got proactive about creating a culture of trust?
No, in something that I want to encourage everyone who's listening and watching is, I'm a big believer in this, and just follow along with me, everyone, just for a moment on this, is I believe that your clients are the key to your growth. Well, as a sales leader, your clients are your salespeople. Your salespeople are a key to your sales growth and your growth personally. I would implore upon sales leaders, ask your salespeople, what does a trusting sales culture look like? Describe it.
Yeah,
Listen,
absolutely.
lean into your salespeople. They're going to share that with you.
Yeah, and this just thinking about this right now in the context of your sales team, your business, what you're doing. The question is, are you what are you doing to intentionally build that sales culture? David Horsager in his book Trusted Leader, there's so much great leadership material out here on building trust, but I think he puts it just really, really simply, and I like that. It's just straightforward, saying, look, every single action we take as a leader, it either increases trust in our culture or it decreases it. It either makes it a culture where I feel safe, where I want to thrive and I want to grow, or it makes it a culture where I gotta, put the wall up, hedge my bet, CYA, and I'm always got one eye, to the door going, where's the next opportunity? Because there's no trust. It's the same thing with our clients. And we've been talking at Selling from the Heart for a while now, inside the podcast, and obviously inside the trust building sales training that we're doing, around the importance of building trust with our clients. Because when there's trust, things move forward. When there's no trust, things get stalled. When there's trust, clients buy more stuff from us, right? There's a relationship there. When there's no trust, it's just a transactional relationship that is probably going to be short-lived. Same thing goes with our employees on our team, right? Our team members on our sales team. When there's trust in the culture, good things happen. When there's no trust, walls go up. And unfortunately, Much like relationships with clients where trust is low, I think the numbers about engagement, turnover, and quota attainment also show us that when it comes to sales reps inside their companies, inside their teams, trust is low.
Yeah, and besides being a sales geek, I'm also a sports geek that a lot of you know. It's no different. What we're sharing here is no different than a head coach of insert your favorite professional sports team.
That's right. So, what we want to do today is think together about how we can build a culture of trust inside our organization. And to guide our discussion, we wanted to do an exercise of applying the trust formula that we coach sales professionals on in developing trust with their prospects and clients to sales leadership and internally. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, it actually works really, really well. So, if you've hung out with us, you've seen the trust formula. If you're new to Selling from the Heart, welcome.
Welcome to the trust formula.
Welcome to the trust formula. But this is, the two sides of trust. The trust coin are authentic relationships and meaningful value. We've got to have real relationships. We've got to deliver meaningful value. There's the social side of it. There's the interpersonal side of it. And there's the business side of it. We're going to unpack those in the context of building trust inside your sales team. The multipliers are inspirational experience and disciplined habits. So let's dive into this conversation and take a look at this. The first part of building a trusting culture in your sales team is authentic relationships. And, this is the easiest and hardest part of this whole thing in some ways, right? This is looking at your sales team from, we think, at least two dimensions. We'd love to, by the way, this conversation that we're having here about this topic is a conversation, and we invite you into this conversation. I think we're just beginning it today. And by the way, thank you to every of the comments coming in online. And I think, Jackie, you're right. Imagine how much it's costing a company to have 84% of employees disengaged. Imagine how much it's costing a sales team. But if you look at these authentic relationships, I think, I look at connection and purpose. And Larry, the real question that I have is, how much of a connection, as sales leaders, do we have with the people on our sales team?
Yeah, it's so true. And this is where I would ask everyone, what makes your salespeople, right? What makes your salespeople come alive? And what do you really know about your salespeople? What do you really know about them on a personal level? What's their drive? What makes them tick? Think about that just for a moment.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and we've always said in sales, people buy from people, but the corollary here is people work for and with people as well. And so, we get in the pressure of managing a sales team, and it just becomes the grind, right? And so I want to look at, salespeople as, human resources that create. We get tempted to look at salespeople as these machines that create sales, right? And when we do that, either from just busyness, I don't think anyone has a bad heart about this, but we neglect the relational side, and trust gets eroded. This happens with our clients, but it's certainly true of our salespeople.
Yeah, I'm just a big believer for sales leaders out there is the more you know about your salespeople, the more you'll grow with your salespeople.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other side of that is, can we connect what's important to our salespeople? What makes them tick? What are their values personally with where we're going as a company? Can we build that bridge? And I've already quoted this book once, but I want to pull it in again, 'cause I think it's so great. The Heart of Business. Hubert says, purpose and human connection constitute the very heart of business. So right at the core of all of this, is, you can look at this and go, why do people come to work? Why do they show up? Is it for a paycheck, or is it for purpose? Is it for commission check, or is it for connection? And The reality is, yeah, of course, let's just assume we all need and want to provide for ourselves, our families, our futures, all of that for sure. But all things equal, and there's plenty of people that are
Yeah.
willing to offer commission checks to your sales, plenty of other companies willing to offer commission checks to your sales team, right? The question is, when they come to work, where's the human connection and where's the bridge to purpose?
Yeah, oftentimes listeners at Selling from the Heart are getting, they've heard this speed to heart. The faster you get to somebody's heart, the faster you'll be able to connect, the faster you'll get them to open up. Sales leaders, the same about your salespeople.
Absolutely.
Speed to heart. The faster you get to their heart and what makes them come alive, you'll really understand what makes them tick.
Absolutely. And this is, this authentic relationship has to be balanced with value. So in a
How
customer,
hey, just really quick,
yeah,
Daryl, sorry to interrupt, but I would submit to everybody, if you want to see this happen, you must be willing to go first. You must be willing to share a little piece of your heart and what makes you come alive and what makes you tick. Sales leaders, you must go first.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so authentic relationship is the first component of creating a trust building sales culture. We're going to look at the other side of the coin that we look with authentic selling, and that is meaningful value. So with clients, we talk about meaningful value. What's important to them? What are the outcomes they want? People don't buy products and services; they buy outcomes. Here, the question is, what's important to your sales team, and what's important to them personally? And so, when we think in the context of meaningful value, we're thinking about, as leaders, how can we listen and respond? Listen, and in this case, we use the word enable, but listen to your salespeople. Like, what's important to you? And, here's the deal. Yes, it's important to get paid. It's important to get paid on time. It's important, but there's more to it than that. Like, what's important to you? And ask, and, shut up and listen.
What, one of the favorite things, I would just encourage you just to ask your salespeople, how may I be a resource to you? What can I do to be of value to you? I'm here to help. How can I be of service? Stop, listen. You'll be amazed the things that you start to hear from your salespeople. But I'm going to tell you this, you have to mean it. You sincerely have to mean it. You can't just surface level ask this. You got to intentionally ask these questions.
And then back it up. And the question is, we got to ask, what are we doing to enable our sales team with the training, the tools? What are we doing to support them to be able to succeed in their roles? And Larry, we've had a really crazy last couple of years, but even before the pandemic, I'm shocked at the number of organizations that you talk to and ask, what are you doing to train your reps? It's a really simple thing, right? What are you doing to train and equip your reps and help them succeed in their careers? And you get answers like, I think a couple of years ago we did something around blah blah blah, and you go, there are actually organizations, that expect their salespeople to perform like high performance corporate athletes. Yet, when it comes to investing in training and tools for their reps, you got to go, what are we doing?
Yeah, no, I want to go back to something that you said really quick and bring this full circle, because just a little bit ago, you said people buy from people.
Hmm.
Sales leaders, I want us just, that's just together. Let's key in on this for a moment. There's two sayings that are used now. They're going to be used forever, long after we're off of this planet. People buy from people. People buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Hmm.
I would ask everybody, if we all can buy into that, and I think we all do, then it's up to you as sales leaders to help develop the people skills and the relationship skills for your salespeople to see this through, which means you're all in this together. You're all working to unpack the people skills, the relationship building skills as a team, and as you all take that out to your clients.
Yeah, this is really, really critical. And the reality is, if you want your sales team, we talked about this at length in the last webinar, in the last how to enable trust building inside your sales team. And this is, I think, one of the areas where you can move the needle the most is not just coaching your reps in the basic selling skills, but going deeper and coaching them in the relational side of this. How do you build authentic relationships? How do you communicate meaningful value? So all of this if you're going to deliver, if you're going to create a culture of trust, what are you doing, to enable your reps to succeed? And not just cramming down what you think they need, but actually talking to them, listening and delivering, on that. And this is a critical time to do that if we want to change the engagement, the turnover, and the quota attainment side of this. So we got authentic relationships, we got meaningful value. What's next, Larry?
Here's the accelerator: inspirational experiences.
Inspirational experience. This is what we call the multiplier. I like addition, but I really like multiplication. And this is where I think we go back to that quote by David Horsager: you're either making a deposit in the trust bank or you're making withdrawals. This question of environment, like what's the environment like in your sales team? I think everybody listening on this call has probably been a part of an environment where trust is being eroded rapidly. Let me just put it politely, right?
Everyone's too afraid to say what they really want to say.
Absolutely. And so, the question is, how can we create a culture of trust, a trust building culture, a trusting culture? This is looking at the environment. Like, look, let's just be honest. It's tough when you're out in the field as a sales professional, whether that's you're actually physically in the field or you're on the phone or on Zoom, doesn't matter. It's tough. Sales by nature is one of the toughest professions out there. We're seeing this, by the way, in terms of the mental health data around sales professionals, something you'll hear us talking about more in the months to come as well. But the reality of this whole thing is when you come back to the office, when you come back to the office, real or virtual, is that a place that is building you up, or is it a place that's tearing you down?
And sales leaders, we fully have the capabilities to control this.
We do. And this is what's cool. And it's the culture, the environment of the office, the bullpen, the sales team. And then the other side of it is purpose. Can we lead with purpose and passion? Can we, look at this? Larry, one of the favorite things I love watching you do with sales teams in workshops is just ask, what's your purpose? Like, tell me some of the favorite stories you've had in working with your clients.
And you'll be amazed. And it's just, for one, you can see salespeople actually come alive. You can see their eyes start lighting up. Everybody has the favorite story. Everybody has their favorite experience. Everyone has their favorite impact. You as sales leaders, unpack this, ask, and watch what starts to happen.
Yeah. And this is, it doesn't matter what you're selling. There's some areas where you can connect to purpose really, really well. We've got, clients in the health side of the business, whether it's pharma or medical devices, or, you look and you go, okay, when we work with our clients, we're bringing a cancer drugs, treatments to the market that are saving lives and allowing grandparents to, be present. Or, it's just like beautiful stories there in the health side of things. But if you look across any industry, the beautiful thing about sales is even if you're selling the most generic, boring widget, the beautiful thing about sales is when you drive up to the office and you see the parking lot full, or you realize that as you're selling, you're creating employment for people. And as you're selling, at July 4th or July 1st for my Canadian friends, or whenever the next holiday is, when everyone gathers around the table as a family, your efforts in sales are enabling the people in your company to eat and enjoy their families. And this is why, don't let anybody tell you any different. Sales is an incredibly noble profession. And you don't have, I mean, if you're delivering cancer saving therapies and all of that, that's or life saving therapies, that's great. But even if you're delivering widgets, the reality is what you're doing is having an impact on someone else's life. And we need to be able to always bridge the results and efforts of our sales team with purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a huge believer in this. What those salespeople out there and sales leaders really key in on this for a moment. I believe what your salespeople are selling are memories and experiences. Together as a team, we have to unpack what are
Yeah,
the memories and what are the experiences that we're creating, and how can your salespeople capture this and bottle this all up so they can go out and evangelize this?
that's right. And a lot of this is down to, as part of that inspirational experience, is just being real with your employees. And I know I've been a sales leader several times in my career, and it's challenging sometimes because it's a high pressure job, and you're held accountable for things, and you do have to hold your reps accountable and all of that. But Craig Rochelle, it was one of our favorite podcasts.
I eat this podcast for breakfast, Daryl. This is Craig Rochelle is one of the best leaders that's out there.
Yes,
Simply one of the best.
unpack this quote for us, Larry.
He goes on to say, and if you watch the Craig Rochelle leadership podcast or you happen to listen to it, he's oftentimes will say people would rather follow a leader that is real than one that is always right. And I'm going to add a couple other R's into this around real. So I'm a big believer. They'll follow a leader who is real, who is relatable, and who's relevant.
Yes.
May not always be right, and that's okay. We all have imperfections.
Yeah, and so I think we've got this opportunity to lead with authenticity, and to be real, and to create these spaces. And this is where, we've talked about authentic relationships, we've talked about meaningful value, we've talked about inspirational experience. Now, to tie it all together, we always look at the other multiplier, which is just simply disciplined habits. But I want to think about some of the habits of sales leadership. And two of them today we want to highlight are one-on-one meetings with your reps, and then meetings with your sales teams, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, for one-on-ones, let's just say, I know you may have sales manager on your card, but managers manage numbers and all of that. I think we need to start thinking of ourselves more as coaches and less as managers.
Yeah, and again, I got to go back to sports for just a moment. And I'm a near and dear. I've grown up in Southern California my whole life, so I'm a huge shout out to the Dodgers and a shout out to Los Angeles Rams. But I want to key in on coach just for a moment. Mm-hmm. Everyone out there, go Google and YouTube Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams. And I say this because you're tying in
inspiration. You're a Rams fan.
Well, no, I'm just, hey, Daryl, even if I wasn't, right, follow this guy for one simple reason.
Awesome.
He's awesome. And he gets grown, high paid adults to do things they normally wouldn't do. And I say run through brick walls because he brings inspirational experiences. He does his one-on-ones. He holds highly paid professionals accountable, and they run through brick walls for this guy. Just think about that for a moment.
Well, and that's what we're called to do, right? Is we're called to hold highly paid professionals accountable and help them be better at what they do. And the coaching metaphor.
And I'm here just to share. I sincerely believe in my heart, people do want to be held accountable. And I remember an old mentor of mine had always said this, and it's stuck in my head. This is like decades and decades old. Iron fist, velvet glove. Mm-hmm. Think about that.
Yeah. So if you think about these one-on-ones, if coaching is better than managing, we need to go deeper than activity and results metrics. We need to be thinking about this as, a manager will go, well, here's what you were supposed to do. You didn't hit your quota. You didn't do it. What are you going to do to be better? A coach is going to say, okay, what do you want to accomplish personally? And how can I help you get there? And, it's two ways to look at coaching versus managing, the totally different approaches. And I just got to say, who wants to be managed? Who wants to, nobody wants to be managed, but we all desire coaching. We need coaching, and every high performance, sometimes I see sales leaders go, I'm going to leave my high performance people alone and let them do what they're doing. And I'm going to manage my new reps till I get them up to quota. Well, what ends up happening is you end up managing new reps that just go through a revolving door turnover, 3x the normal industry turnover overall that we saw earlier. And the high performance people on your team never get any coaching. And, at some point, no coaching, no connection to purpose, negative environment,
Disengagement.
right?
And I remember, this goes back to a shout out to, one of my favorite authors, Len Herstein, who wrote the book Be Vigilant. And the best quote I've heard forever, and it ties into this, is success breeds complacency. In sales leaders, I want us to key in on this, especially when you think of the top 1, 2, 3 people on your sales team. They are successful. Just don't get complacent in your interaction with them.
That's right. And so we look at coaching, go deeper than activity, and then meetings. You've got meetings with your salespeople. Here's an opportunity. Meetings. We've all been to sales meetings that are just a bummer. Just like, let me out of here, right? But can we leverage these gatherings of our salespeople as an opportunity to share positive stories and to actually build everybody up? Stories about success, and not just, how did you win the deal, but also bigger stories about impact and how the work the sales team is doing is making a difference in both the company and the world. And let me say, you're making a difference. You provided a job, for somebody out there. And maybe that impact goes way further than that. Let's build purpose into our meetings so that our meetings start and end at a minimum with something positive, so that we're creating this culture of trust. And in the process, let's also coach our salespeople on how to build trust. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I would just say, for the sales leaders out there, imagine starting every one of your conversations with, share with me a great conversation you had this week with a client. What was a great experience you had with a client? What was a great conversation you had with a future client? Unpack that. What made it so memorable?
Absolutely.
If you do that on a consistent basis, guess what? People are going to start looking forward to sharing the stories, but they're going to want to share more stories and more stories and more stories.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite authors, Larry. Leaders who lead from the heart develop sales team that sells from the heart.
So now, hey, thanks, Daryl, for quoting me. That was
welcome,
awfully
Larry.
kind of you. Oh, thanks. To throw one in there. But think about that for a moment. You as sales leaders, it's up to you. If you want your salespeople to go out there and sell from the heart, then you must be willing to share your heart with your salespeople. Lead, guide, show appreciation, love, care, and respect to your salespeople. Hey, watch what happens. Second thing, watch what happens as they take that message to their clients.
That's right. So we want to leave with some action items today, and I really appreciate whether you're here live or watching in later. This is an important conversation for us to have, and this is going to be a huge part of the thread inside Selling from the Heart going forward for our clients and also for our community, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's just 4 practical things. What can you do? I'll take the first one. Develop authentic relationships with your team. You've got a team of people. Let's do everything we can to get to know them and get to know them personally and what's going on that not only motivates them, but also what's going on in their lives.
Right. And secondly, help your salespeople bring meaningful value to what they do. Unpack that with them. What makes them come alive? What makes them tick? What's value to them? I would even ask them, what does value mean to you? And how can I be of value to you? Help your salespeople with that.
Enable them, and then create inspirational experiences with your team, for your team, with your team. Look for ways to do that and make things positive inside your organization. And then all of that culminates in those disciplined habits.
Yeah. And lastly, it's about disciplined habits. I would even use, another term that I just a it goes along the same line as massive action. Take massive action with your salespeople. Lean in, right? You've heard me say lean in. Just
Mhm.
show you care. Give a rip.
That's right.
Just
That's right.
absolutely give a rip about your salespeople. If you give a rip about your salespeople, I promise you this, they will give a rip about you.
Yeah, and it's selling from the heart. We're committed to helping sales teams build trust to this, apply trust to the sales process. So if you think about this, we've talked about the trust formula that you see on the right side of the screen here: authentic relationship plus meaningful value times inspirational experience and disciplined habits. This gets applied in our trust building training through prospecting, selling, and client management. But the huge piece of making all this work is this culture side, because we've all seen organizations that train their salespeople, but it ends up as shelfware. It never ends up being adopted. And my contention, my my statement here on this is, if you want your salespeople to build trusting relationships with your clients, then build trusting relationships with your salespeople. Build a culture of trust in your organization, so that what they experience inside your company, it just overflows into the type of relationships they have with their clients.
No, absolutely. And I just got a key on something you said, please don't make this shelfware. And the first thing when I heard that came to mind is that I just have to play off of selling from the heart, everyone. So just bear with me as I geek out on this as we bring this to a close. And we appreciate all of you. Is don't allow this to become shelfware. Make it heartware. How do you like that one, Daryl? As
That's
corny as it sounds, I had to play off it. So
pretty cheesy, Larry.
it's pretty cheesy, but
Well, one of the things that we've been committed,
at least y'all smiled. I
we're
know you
having,
did.
if this is resonating with you, if you're saying, hey, you know what, Larry, Daryl, you're absolutely right. We need to continue to build a culture of trust. Maybe we've never even thought about culture in the context of our sales team before. We invite you to join us in this conversation. This is brand new. It's just forming. This is a new community of like-hearted sales leaders. We call it the Sales Leaders Mastermind. And this is a group of sales leaders, VPs, sales managers, that are gathering together on a monthly basis to discuss things like this, like, how do we make this stick in our organizations? How do we build a culture of trust in our business? And if this, if you're listening to this and going, wow, we need this, this is what I want in my organization, go to sellingfromtheheart.net/mastermind right now. Sign up. We'll gather monthly. Right now, our charter members are getting in at no cost. So this is a great opportunity to dive in and talk openly in a private, confidential, safe environment with other sales leaders about, okay, how do we actually bring this to life?
Yeah, I would ask everyone as we wrap up here is take a look at what your numbers were last year. Really take a hard look at, hey, where were we last year? Were we at plan, above plan? Where were the areas for improvement? Where are we at right now? And you heard us talking about multipliers. We're big believers here. If you want to 2x and 3x your sales results this year, build trust and credibility inside your sales team. Build authentic relationships, bring meaningful value. Wrap that with inspirational experiences and bring some discipline to it. Watch what starts to happen. You will exponentially grow your sales results above and beyond what you imagine.
Yeah, I think you summed that up really, really well. And as we said throughout this is the beginning of a conversation, and we believe that this is the data at the beginning shows that what we're talking about here with engagement, turnover, and quota attainment, this is serious. Like this is, you go, well, this is soft stuff, but here's the deal: soft skills yield hard dollars. And So when you're looking at the success of your sales team, and quite frankly, when you're looking at the peace of mind of us being a sales leader, the question is, do you want to work in an organization or on a team that is a trusting team, or do you want to work in the opposite? And so we invite you to continue this conversation. Join us on the journey. Come hang out in the Sales Leaders Mastermind. Share this with other like-hearted sales professionals. And Larry, as always, it's been a blast having this conversation with you today. And I'm so excited about all the conversation that's going to spin out of this.
No, absolutely. And I'd be remiss, but I just have to say this because it ties in together. And I really want sales leaders to key in on this for a moment. Your clients and your future clients would rather do business and connect with a sales professional who sells from the heart, as opposed to a sales rep who's an empty suit.
And your current and future employees, team members,
There
would
you go.
rather work for somebody that leads from the heart than not. So there you go. That was really concise. Hey, thanks for joining us today. If you want to continue this conversation, reach out to Larry, reach out to me. We'd love to have this conversation with you. And we hope to see you in the next Sales Leaders Mastermind.